You did say the one. We're starting now, I guess.
Wait,
this is it. Everyone project their voices. Throw it to an audience.
Hello.
Welcome to whatever this is.
It's called Celluloid Goblins. You can read it right there onto the left-hand side of the Discord.
I'm sorry, but that's a little bit insulting that you would assume that I could read like that. I mean,
oh my gosh, guys, we have Kermit the Frog here?
Oh, I thought it was Jordan Peterson. I mean, Kermit can read. Jordan Peterson can't, so.
Wow.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Celluloid Goblins. We're gonna talk about a movie today, which we'll say later, but you can read it in the title already. First off, let's talk about who we are. Who wants to go first? Because I don't want to go first, because I already spent a lot of time talking, so it has to be someone else now.
Clearly, it can't be me either, because I spent all my energy. I have to wait for my cooldown on my Kermit power. So.
All right, now here's the thing. Mari, you're the only one of us who isn't a nobody. Like, this is our debut. Is this podcast?
This is your debut.
Right.
Okay, so my name's Mari.
Hi,
before
Mari.
I did the toy channel stuff, and now I want to do a movie thing. But I kind of still want to do toy stuff. But hey, let's do a movie thing, because I want to feel smarter. I want to learn things. I want to absorb knowledge through a visual and auditory medium. That's
Mari
it.
is a
I'm
sponge,
Mari.
is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Guys, oh fuck! Did I just attempt to do a SpongeBob? Christ! Oh my god!
Hey, it's all right.
Something.
No one's gonna listen to the first episode once we get established.
And that is Dunk.
Yep.
Tell us about yourself, Dunk.
Just some random asshole from Discord.
Yes,
I picked this
met
movie.
Dunk.
You may or may not exist.
And we got Soy here. Hello, Soy.
Hello. I've been picked to be a part of this podcast for some reason that escapes my grasp.
Purely because I was like, I don't know if me and Dunk can carry a whole podcast, because he seems to be a lot more insightful than I am. Let's have Soy, because he's a funny man. He can do funny impressions.
He's not insightful at all, but he'll just be there for comic relief.
He's not, maybe not insightful, but he's seen more stuff than I have. He picked fucking Stalker. When would I have picked Stalker? By the way, guys, we're watching Stalker.
It seemed like it was kind of a mistake in retrospect, because I mean, like, I didn't want to like baby you guys, but I also, didn't want to like give you the most dense, impenetrable film possible to start with.
Oh yeah, so
something
you
I want to ask.
Stalker.
But like,
Dunk.
what?
Have you actually? Did you watch this movie before?
Yeah, I love it. It's an all-time favorite for sure. So I mean, that's part of the reason, because I also want to be like honest about what my taste is and establishing what our tastes are at the beginning of this podcast.
That's fair. I was like, maybe we should watch Terminator 2.
I mean, Terminator 2 is good.
Terminator 2 is
very, very different film.
Very different. No, very similar. Terminator 2, when they go to the future, that's really like sort of the Visitation and Stalker, The whole the whole Earth, it just becomes the zone. And instead of Stalker portals and Stalker monsters, it's just a Terminator.
Yeah, the portals and monsters played a big role in this film for sure. It's definitely
all the crazy monsters, like that one dog who showed up.
I was watching the whole thing and I was like, so like this is like the game, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's not.
No.
But so we've talked about we mentioned it a bunch, but officially our first fucking movie discussion is gonna be Stalker from 1979.
Got it.
Yes.
Nailed it.
Yes. Nailed it. Took me a while.
Directed by Andrei Tarkovskys.
Not bad.
Yes.
Yeah. Very acclaimed director among pretentious art school students.
I've definitely heard his name thrown around a lot. I've seen his stuff in the Criterion collection.
Yeah.
Which I think this movie's in.
Yes, it is.
Do anyone have a little information on like the backstory of this movie before we get into just the plot and sort of just break it down, sort of?
The one thing I do know is that he was apparently like in December of, this was like Christmas Day, some point in the mid-70s, he had expressed interest in making a movie adaptation of Roadside Picnic. And
yes,
again, drawing on what little I know, he was kind of in a very difficult point in his life because he was trying to get out of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that carried over into the film.
Yeah.
Which I guess we'll get to when we get to actually talking about it. But other than that, also the fact that apparently the film was a huge, like just not a good project to work with. Like, I read one specific thing where apparently they had to film, like all the camera teams were like knee deep in like basically sludge.
Nice.
Oh, jeez.
For
Just
about-
like literal sludge in the movie, like that we see.
Yes, like the literal actual sludge.
And
they
here
had
it
to
was
wait.
literally going like, oh, that's like set dressing, right?
Yeah.
Nope, that's just Russia, apparently.
Tarkovsky is not the type to compromise a shot to keep you from getting your legs sludgy.
Oh, yeah.
If there's
he
one
seems like
weird
the
thing
type.
about the movie that I noticed, it's that I don't think there was ever like a dry spot. Like everywhere was like,
Right.
constantly wet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true, yeah.
Well, because I mean, it's like you have like the neighbor, like the poor industrial neighborhood or whatever that's in just constant disrepair. And then you get into the zone and everything's just totally overgrown. It's for different reasons, but there's never a point.
And there's just color suddenly. Like I
Yeah.
read I did a bunch of research after this because of course it's the kind of movie where you have to. And I was like, oh, I see it now. I would never have gone to these conclusions on my own.
I would have guessed it because the Wizard of Oz did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
like-
it's that was in the research that I saw, or like
Yeah.
one of the videos that I have.
But to be fair, the Wizard of Oz is a lot more palatable because it's not like half an hour
Yeah.
of black and white.
It's not like let's spend the first like 10 minutes of the film on this one shot of Dorothy in bed.
But also the black and white in Wizard of Oz is a little more neutral. But in this movie, it's like it's not really black and white. It's got this kind of oppressive, like
it's
rusted,
like really
decayed-
low
Yeah.
saturation.
Yeah, and it's very. I mean, it makes whatever's on the screen, which already looks like a shitty place to be in, it makes it look shittier just because of
Yeah.
the like
Yes.
oppressive nature.
The copy I saw, I watched a copy on YouTube that had Spanish subtitles. So
I know the
so then
version
I
you're
just-
watching.
So then I just auto translated it, and it was like really like it was like fair, like everything was there, you know.
And you would
But,
know.
It's funny because there was a version that actually did have straight up English subtitles.
English, but it's
Oh,
like
of
only
course.
in Russia or something. Like it was an official copy. Like I don't know. It's from the people that made the movie, and they just released it on YouTube. But you can't watch it if you're in the U.S. I had a note here about the black and white. So like in my copy, it was like black and white or little very low saturation. But then the very top, like 1/10 of the screen was like half sapphire. Like it was like when you
That
put
probably
oil.
might just be.
that sounds
like-
like a bad version. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that can happen, especially when you're going from like old film reels to VHS, and then
VHS, the
DVD,
digital.
and then
Yeah. Okay.
if they do a shitty job, then it can look real bad. Like the
Mm-hmm.
Brave Little Toaster, you'll notice there's a lot of in like the more recent releases, like on DVD, there's a lot of garbage area like
Yeah.
around the edges of the screen because Disney really didn't care about that film.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
We should do
I haven't
Brave
even
We're
Little
not
seen
talking
Toaster.
about that,
Okay.
but we'll talk about that next.
Well, I am a bit concerned about your version because I know that you perceive the subtitles to be fine, but it's like, I mean, that's
Yeah, entirely
movie-
possible.
the writing is like very poetic and pointed
Yeah.
and specific, and it's like the very
Yes.
like the sentence structure is like incredibly significant.
Shit.
So
Maybe I
mean,
did fuck myself.
I mean,
over.
it might be
I
fine. I
understand
don't
it.
know.
Yeah.
but like,
It's
know.
kind of like in there's a game called Pathologic that was originally in Russian.
oh, it's
and
got a
there are
lot
other-
in common with Pathologic. It's probably got more in common with
Yeah.
Pathologic than it does with the actual
with the
Stalker
actual
game.
Stalker game.
Yeah.
Stalker, yeah. Now that I think
Um,
about it, kind of.
Have any of you actually played the Stalker game? I know
Yes.
I have.
Yes.
They're very good for very,
very
different
good.
Except for-
reasons.
Very
Except
different.
for Clear Sky. Except for Clear Sky.
I play Clear
Which was-
Sky. Clear Sky is fine. It's definitely the weak
yeah.
spot,
I-
but
It's
So,
the
like,
weakest, I will say.
I think for sure the games kind of influenced my opinion for this movie because I'm just watching it and I'm like, oh, okay, so there's no gun, there's no
Yeah.
heavy armor.
in fact, the one gun you see gets thrown into the water.
I mean, I probably
Other
should have
than
warned
the
you guys
military.
a little bit more for that, and probably not played up the fact that it was the original, or not, the original inspiration for those games. But part of the reason I thought it was so fascinating was how different it ended up being. Like going back to it, part of what
Yeah.
fascinated me about the movie was how different it was, and how it was like the origin and the imagery that inspired the games was a lot less literal and a lot more like
It
symbolic
was very,
Yeah.
yes,
than
very abstract.
I don't know. I just thought that was cool.
But it is worthy to know it's different. Not like it improved it, but like it's just different. But both still very good.
It's far too different to even compare, really.
Like I was saying before, the book, the movie, and the game, they're all interpreting a core story very differently.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
It's less about the story and more about the themes that Tarkovsky wanted to show us, I think. Just using this thing as a vehicle.
Perhaps.
Did I say enough big words?
Yes.
Maybe.
I remember he said in an interview that according to him, the only two things that it had in common with the book were the phrases "the zone" and "stalker." But also, for some reason, the stalker's daughter is still named Monkey, even though in the book there was a reason for that, because she had basically a full body covering of like golden fur.
Oh,
weird. I should read the book. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, but here in the movie, she just can't really walk.
Yeah, it is a weird... I mean, I guess you could logically deduce that it's because, she doesn't have legs, that she has to, like, climb on stuff like a monkey does. I mean...
But
that's,
she, has legs.
So I guess speaking about the daughter, should we just
polio?
Should we just jump into the beginning of the plot?
Yeah, I mean, we're
as well.
kind of hopping around, but...
That's all right, yeah.
Initial impressions and such.
Yeah. So I remember the start much more clearly than the rest, but there is kind of a reason for that. So the start, it is an unnamed man named Stalker with his family. And we get some really long, drawn-out shots, just sort of lulling it, giving you the information that you kind of want.
A lot of information that you probably maybe don't realize you're being given at the time.
Yeah, and then
I actually watched it twice in the intervening time, and I didn't quite pick up on it the first time.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad you showed some real dedication. Appreciate that.
Dang.
I'm not throwing shade at you, Mari. I'm just surprised. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just...
I'm kind of surprised too. In a good way. I think we're doing pretty good. I think we're doing a great start. Not to toot our own horn. We're introduced to Stalker. He has a family. The wife is she's like angry at him or something because he wants to do his job or something.
Basically, because it's illegal to enter the zone, it's surrounded by a military cordon.
We didn't even set up the zone, did we?
Well,
I guess we should go.
We'll get to it.
Yeah. It starts.
There is actually like a pre-credit.
There's a Star Warsy type thing.
About
that. I kept thinking. I remember this is what originally wanted me to look into the book, because there's basically a text crawl that's from like in the movie. They say it's from like an interview or something.
Yeah, it's from someone.
I thought it was taken because in the start of the book, it starts off with an actual interview with a scientist who's describing like what the what the actual visitation of the zone was, which was very different than in the movie.
Yeah.
Fun fact: the book actually takes place in Canada.
Oh, really?
Weird.
But it's not a Canadian book, though. It's still a Russian book, right?
Oh.
Well, yeah, it's still a Russian book, but it takes place in Canada. Also, there are multiple zones across the planet.
Oh, okay.
In the movie, there's only one zone, and it's somewhere in the Soviet Union.
Russia.
Russia, or wherever. And essentially, the way they explain it, a meteorite landed, and when people started investigating, people started disappearing. So the military set up a cordon around this area, and rumors started to pop up of, there's this thing, there's this place, this room. There's a copy of the room that'll grant all your wishes. And a sort of new profession sprung out of nowhere called a stalker, who is basically just a guide through the zone, essentially. Someone who is very attuned to the zone and all of its very temperamental nature.
Yeah.
So that's what the main character bases his identity around, is him being a stalker. And at the start of the movie, it's him getting out of bed and getting ready to meet two more clients. And his wife is expressing extreme displeasure at that because he just got out of prison, a 5-year sentence for being in the zone.
Yeah.
Because the military really doesn't want people to be in there. And, he basically just says, well, it's what I do. I'm going to continue doing this. And she just lets him do it. And,
he doesn't,
there's
not really any reason given as to why he's so set on doing this. And
at least At least not yet.
Right,
at this point.
and even when it is given, it's very much a slow reveal over the course of the movie. But I mean that first shot is so fucking good for so many reasons. I mean, it's like you don't see who's all in the bed at first, and it pans over, and then you see that there's three in a bed, so you know they only have one.
First, you see the table full of like pills and then like half-eaten apples and stuff.
Yeah,
and it pans to the wife, and there's the child in the middle, and then Stalker has his eyes open, staring at his daughter. Then we pan back.
Yeah, and
this giving you all this information. It's great.
The train starts rattling the table because they live in like a shitty neighborhood where they can't get any sleep because the train's constantly passing by, and
the glass moves.
Yeah,
which comes into play again later, literally at the end. This movie is sort of like a day in a life type of thing where we just follow the stalker.
Day in the life is such an understated, innocuous way to.
Yeah. Well, day in the life because he comes back. You know what I mean? Like it's a loop type of thing.
Is that an ordinary day
for them?
I guess.
I think that probably does the film a disservice to classify it as an ordinary day.
I'm just sort of giving the timeline of the thing.
I know.
Despite
a day in the life of the zone. There you go.
We'll get into it, but I know I am just really simplifying it. But the idea is that we'll unravel it, kind of a thing.
Because I would imagine the zone itself behaves very similarly on a day-to-day basis, which is to say, randomly.
Yeah, well, supposedly,
it's consistent, and that it's inconsistent.
We'll get to that because I have some interesting thoughts about.
So Stalker Man,
I know what they may
Stalker
be.
Man's got a new job, and he goes to the bar, meets his two clients.
Mm-hmm.
There's a writer and then like a professor, and then they both want him to bring them to the room in the zone, right?
For reasons that again
wish granting room
are really only revealed gradually and never in like an easily digestible, explainable sentence or anything. So.
From there, they're escaping the fucking little town that they're in. Is it a town? Yeah, whatever. The town area that they're in, and they gotta take a jeep out the outskirts. They only get spotted. It's sort of like pumping you up almost. I think like it's being like, hey, there's action coming. There's action coming.
It's like the one of two action-packed scenes in the movie.
And action is in big fucking quotes here.
I mean, yeah.
So, there's a lot of suspense. There's gunfire.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff happening in comparison to what you get later on, I think. Which is why it's kind of heightened in this case. At least for me.
I think what's interesting about it is, or what attention is drawn to is both how little we know about these characters' motivations and how much danger they're willing to risk to accomplish mysterious tasks we're unaware of, but also how much the state, for reasons that are not, only that people are getting hurt, is the only reason we're given, are so determined to keep anyone from going in on their own will into this area. And go ahead.
And also, if we'll get into this later, if Porcupine's story is to be believed, then that wish granting room should definitely be defended by at least a military cordon.
Yeah. And I think part of what's fascinating about the portrayal of, I guess it would be the Soviet state in the film, is how they almost seem complicit in the idea of the wish granter being like functional and of great value and great importance, because they're not really given a reason, a very elaborate reason for having such a massive protection going on of the zone. And even if it's just in the minds of the characters, the idea that would enhance the idea that it's something forbidden and truly powerful that they have the ability to get to.
I wish I had more to interject that with, but I think you're just on a roll there, Dunk. Good job.
I mean, it's because I like the movie. When we do a movie you like, I won't have as much to say about it, probably.
It depends. I could just be watching a dumb movie and you can just have still good interject. I mean, we don't know. We'll see. Wait till the second episode.
Let me know when we get to Baby's Day Out, and I'll have a lot to
say. So they escape the military presence. They escape it. And they get on this little trolley, or is it a trolley or a train?
It's like a mine cart.
It's a minecart type of thing. And then,
it's like
and then,
those pump carts you see in like old Western movies, except this has a motor that you can put gas into.
yeah. So they get in a little train cart, and they leave, and then they just kind of stay on these long shots behind everyone's head.
I love that
and then,
sequence.
Then the client, the professor, and then the writer, like they keep looking back, looking forward, looking back, looking forward.
Well, because they're seeing the zone in color, and they're seeing their own land in sepia tone. And they're like, "What the hell's that?"
I mean, it's a very literal analysis, but you're not entirely wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we're going down the rabbit hole, so to speak. So it's like things are changing.
To be fair, like these people, who've probably not ever really ventured outside of this small town for most of their lives, are probably kind of surprised at seeing the, I guess, natural beauty of the zone. Like all the trees, all the destroyed buildings. Beauty is not the right word, I guess, just landscape. That it's so vastly different.
Well, that's what I think that is so genius about the color change, is that it's like, it's not that this place is intrinsically beautiful, it's just that they're bringing so much emotional baggage that it appears beautiful regardless of whether it is or not. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Especially to Stalker.
Yeah, it's just, it's like you've attributed importance to this place, and you think that it's going to change your life for the better, and so it is beautiful. It doesn't matter how shitty it looks.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason I think that works so well.
Oh, excuse me. So, this is the part where I want to mention that the whole thing is sort of supposed to be like a dream, like a trance. Going into the zone is supposed to be this sort of, not like out of body, but like just sort of like you're on autopilot, I think.
I mean,
so that's. And
Tarkovsky usually has a dreamlike style to his films. That's kind of a recurring theme.
And the dream stuff is starting right here in this train cart, where we're sort of moving right to left, and then the camera keeps moving, and then there's some sort of synthesizer just coming on, and like the rhythmic, almost hypnotic sound of the train is happening, and then literally like jump cut to the fucking, we're out in the zone, full color. It's just supposed to be like a when they're hypnotizing you and they're moving the watch left and right in front of your eyes. That's the train, and then the snap of the fingers is the fucking the cut to the zone.
That's good.
And we're talking like color, Well, I watched a bunch of good videos, so I'm just stealing everything.
Well,
not stealing, but like that's what I've absorbed.
I read only one analysis, so most of my criticisms
I watched fucking
and
3
thoughts
videos
come from me.
on this.
I watch nothing. This is literally all from my brain right now.
All right.
You've just watched the movie 27 times.
Not even. I've only seen it a few times. But.
So we're out into the zone now, and what comes next?
Well, if I remember correctly, Stalker decides to go like visit a patch of flowers. And then he initially references Porcupine, the character I was talking about before.
Yes.
And his story, and how Porcupine was his mentor and taught him everything about the zone, and how he eventually met a grisly fate by hanging himself after reaching the room. And there's this really nice shot of after the Stalker leaves to go, find a flower patch, he lays down in the grass, he just sort of takes it all in.
And lets the bugs crawl on him. Yeah,
lets a centipede crawl over his hand. See, I could lay down on the grass, I can't let bugs crawl in my hands.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't do that.
Stalker, you crazy?
Yeah.
Them zone bugs? Hell no.
They're worse than regular bugs.
Yes, they're probably aliens. We cut back to, we're switching back and forth to a scene with the professor and the writer.
Yep.
And I don't know why my memory's failing me, but
that's okay.
Well, they talk about
like,
in more depth the porcupine thing about like
the
and they don't really have an answer for like why he committed suicide, or like they don't,
at least not yet.
Right.
At least not
right.
Yet.
And that one's especially interesting because I don't know if anyone knows that until later when it's revealed. I don't think that anyone's just holding on to that knowledge right now. I think that's
probably not, given how intense their interactions get later on in the movie. I would say that one of the central themes of the film is self-discovery.
Of course.
So
agreed.
But yeah, there's a lot of mystery around this porcupine guy and how he appears to have gotten what he wanted and then been miserable with it and committed suicide.
Because we should clarify, he went into the room wishing for riches, and that's exactly what he got, according to what people say. But a week afterwards, he hang himself, and no one really knows why. And I think the writer theorized that, like, he was too successful or something like that. Like, wealth didn't satisfy him or something. I remember that being brought up at some point, but it's not clear. It's
really kind of glossed over at that point for now, and we don't get back to it for a while later.
It seems like no matter how fairly straightforward the story unravels itself, it's still kind of like hard to follow, I think.
Well, yeah,
also the professor is making some bolts with gauze,
which is
because that's what the Stalker
literally
uses.
The one thing that the game carried over.
Yeah.
But
well, even then, the game
it's nuts. My bad.
Yeah.
Even then, the game doesn't have. Actually, wait, you're right, isn't it? In the movie, it's nuts, but in the game, it's bolts, isn't it?
Yes.
So even then, it's not exactly.
I wonder if that was like an intentional, like
it seems like it.
I think it's just because it's a bigger object that we can see, more of a recognizable shape. I think.
I think you might because I mean, you don't have to load a bolt into a sock and then.
Yeah, and there's no hole or anything, nothing complicated. It's just a fucking cylinder.
At the end of the day, well, we could get into some interesting details about model.
I don't know if we need to
and such, but
I don't know if we need to do that
unless it's A prime, B prime, C prime.
Ha ha ha.
So from
your binomial theorem.
Although I should mention. I actually wrote this down. There is a quote that I really like during that scene where it's if God is also a triangle, then I don't know what to think. Is like the best summation of the writer's character that I know of. Because I feel that dude on a spiritual level. I know. I see it. We see eye to eye that motherfucker. We know what's going on.
So interesting allusion to the whole Trinity thing.
Yeah,
I'm having trouble here, so I just pulled up the fucking Wikipedia plot over here. After Porcupine's stuff, the three men discuss the reasons for wanting to visit the room.
Mm-hmm.
The writer expresses his fear of losing his inspiration. The professor seems less anxious, though he insists on carrying along a small backpack. The professor admits he hopes to win a Nobel Prize for scientific analysis of the zone.
But the thing that's hard to convey in a summary of this is that even as characters say things like that, and it sounds like a plot point, it's almost as if they're figuring that out as they're saying it, and it's not concrete or even reliable in any sense. I mean, it's like you take everything with a grain of salt, and you look at everything through the lens of the bias of the character who's saying it. And it's almost not trustworthy. Because even that when he says that, the writer, like in the next scene, if even that, says that actually, it's not about inspiration at all. I don't even know why I said that. How am I supposed to know what I want or what I don't want, or that I want what I want? When he says that, because I mean, these guys are fucking clueless. That's why they're out here. No one who knows what the hell's going on would risk their lives coming out to this fucked up wilderness.
Stalker's like, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, because the Stalker is in ecstasy from the moment they enter the zone, because he loves it. He just loves being there. That's essentially his character.
If I grew up in that place, that horrible industrial town, I'd probably just love to get away from all the coal dust in my lungs.
And all the sapphire in your eyes.
Yeah, and that's something that I only really thought about watching it this time, and I never really thought about it before, but I feel like there is a distinct political component to this film when you take into account like the Soviet influence.
Do you also think it's like faith or like it's questioning?
Oh, absolutely.
Faith too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
We haven't discussed that, and I just wanted to bring that in real quick before we get too far in. That there is a lot of when they exit the zone, they stop at the end of the tracks and they're just standing around. There's electricity poles. And they're just like super obvious, what are they, crosses that are just in front of them and behind them.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. Well, also, there's the part where like the writer puts on a literal crown of thorns and says, "I do not forgive you."
Right, right. Yeah, and that's a lot later.
Yes.
But it's so like off random tidbit that we can just put it anywhere, to be honest.
Yeah, well, and the structure is important when viewing it, but in terms of like strict event chronology, it's not really that important. So,
where are we from here then?
Well, they're heading out and they're going to the first landmark of the pole, I think, is where, and then the Stalker points out where the room is.
Yeah, and there's a great bit where the writer's like, why do we got to go all the way around just because you haven't done it before and supposedly it's real scary? Why do we do that? And he goes up to the room. He tries to go take the short path up to the room, and
go away.
Yeah, and we don't see who says it, and supposedly, like we're expected to believe that it's like some supernatural force that told him to go away, and maybe that is, but we don't see either of the other two guys, and both of them think the other guy said it. So it could definitely be one of the two guys who said it.
And then the professor says, "Oh, so you said it yourself? You just threw your voice? Okay, I see how it is."
Yeah, right. But perhaps what's even more fascinating about that scene is that it actually works, because the writer doesn't seem like he gives a shit at all. And then for some bizarre reason, he sees that they're trying to stop him from going in, and he obeys. And
that's the magic of the zone.
Well, yeah, but I also almost wonder if it's because he can tell that going in there right now is going to suck, but not because he's going in there right now, because going in there is going to suck. I don't know. I mean, that's not really substantiated in anything, but
yeah. If the meat grinder's like anything it is in the books, you really don't want to go in there.
Right. But also, we are introduced to the first instance of the Stalker sort of justifying his weird, complicated, ritualistic actions in the zone with flimsy logic, like usually anecdotal, but even beyond anecdotal, he'll say a lot of things like, people don't do this, with no substantiation for why, and he says that we somehow have an impact on it, but it's not known how, so we have to obey these rules, and then even then it's still kind of a crapshoot, really, because there's no, and it just almost, it progresses to the point where it's like, does any of this actually do anything at all? Or is this literally just the narrative you've made to not only feel safe in the zone, but also to assign it some divine meaning so that you just love being in it for every second, and you don't ever think about what's in the room or how shitty your life is at home, either way. So I realize I just kind of got to the end of the thing.
Day walk.
Yeah. And that's his character to me, I think, is that he doesn't actually, like, I mean, he's the religious one, and the religion comparison is very apt, and
blind faith, I would call it.
And there's definitely a lot of comparisons that are made between religion and drug use, which is another Marxist thing. So take from that what you will. Like the presence of needles all throughout the film, and
I saw them a lot.
And, you know, I guess we're kind of just hopping around now, but I don't know if it's more important to stick to the chronology or just nail down this point.
Just kind of hops around.
We're almost at the end. We might as well just finish up.
I mean, well, in the part where it goes back to Sepia and he's like laying in like a river and the dog's around, that's almost like being a strung out drug addict.
Yeah.
I mean, it plays that way.
Especially when you hear his wife's voiceover too.
Yeah,
it's like it's supposed to be a visual reference that he's still attached to his old life.
And I wouldn't interpret that literally. Like, I wouldn't interpret that they're just getting high, but it is. Like,
well, for Stalker, it is possible in the zone.
I mean, no, I'm sure it's possible, but I just mean, I think it's more important that it shows that being in the zone is.
The room is actually just a really big pharmacy where you can just take whatever drug you want.
Yeah.
I mean, they did find those tranquilizers in the room with the working telephone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the writer's like, these are really good quality. You can't buy these anymore.
Right.
Then we go where? I'm sorry.
After that, I believe there's the sequence where the professor goes back to get his backpack.
Perhaps the most important sequence in the entire thing, for a multitude of no, like seriously, like it's really well done. I think. I mean, like, he complains about having left his knapsack because they rested for a bit, but and
he said he thought that the Stalker was just going forward a bit to show him something, but no, they were actually progressing.
And of course, he can't go back because people don't do that here, and it's not. He doesn't say why, but he's very seriously afraid of what would happen if you did. I mean, it's clear that he's internalized that logic completely.
All he knows is that people disappear.
Right. And so the grand thing is that they leave him behind because he goes back to get it, and they're like, well, can't go back, so I guess he's dead.
I guess he's fucked.
And then they go in a circle and end up back at where the professor is eating his lunch with his knapsack that he got. And of course, the Stalker's like, oh man, this is the most elaborate trap I've ever seen in the whole... And it's like, you just got lost, you fucking idiot. Like, you literally just got lost.
He sees like one of the nuts like hanging from like the cave that they came from, and he's like, this is clearly a sign left by Porcupine,
and he uses it
not to go in there.
He uses it to bail himself out, not just to the other guys but to himself, because he really believes that it was a trap and that he just got lost because this place is confusing and stupid. I mean,
because they just went into an underground cave system for reasons.
We're Stalker.
And the thing that seals that, I know I said he got lost like with certainty, but the thing that seals that he got lost is when he's like, well, let's not take that path anyway just to be safe. And it's like, okay, so it literally just loops around and you got lost, and that's what you're telling me.
Jeez.
Like, I mean, it was pretty clear to me. But it actually wasn't, the first time I saw the movie, but it was like the second time when I was more skeptical of the Stalker's entire dogma. It became...
I didn't quite get that impression that it was necessarily intentional, like, in the sense that it was malicious.
No, I don't think it was. I don't even think he was fully aware of it. I just think that it was like, it was part of the revelation that our grasp on whatever supernature exists, if there even is supernature, I guess even that is up to debate, really, is like so disconnected from what it actually is that it almost there's no point in even having it. Like, it's just...
I mean, it's like, in ancient Greece watching a lightning strike, and then one guy goes, that must have been Zeus. He's angry at us for some reason.
It's literally...
And then another guy's like, well, you see, it's because of the static electricity present within ice particles within clouds.
Right. I mean, and it's not a very religion-friendly film, so I guess if you're a devout religious person, you probably won't be crazy about it, but... Because it definitely...
If you still believe in Zeus, you probably won't like this movie.
Well, yeah, definitely not that. But, it definitely... is, at times even kind of hostile towards it, the way it just sort of equates.
Especially the writer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
First time watching, I would have expected the professor character to be more antagonistic towards the religious themes, but no, it's the writer.
Yeah, because, the professor is kind of, I think, the hardest character to really get your head around, because he's so understated and he doesn't have a lot of scenes where he just exposes his entire consciousness with philosophical dialogue.
I feel like that ties in with his character, especially because, of what is in his bag.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not just sandwiches and a thermos.
Yeah.
No.
But
Mr. Professor is should I just say it? I guess move the plot along, right?
It's up to you. I was thinking we could at least do the meat grinder sequence. Okay, yeah, well, because they have to go through this tunnel, and they draw matches, of course, and there's not an unbiased way to draw matches where one of them's the long one, and that means you have to go, because he holds it up to the writer first, and it's like, okay, well, statistically, so, but anyway, writer pulls it in. He doesn't seem too hurt about it. He does it. He might gripe about it. But one of the things that I think is really revealing about the Stalker's character is the writer moves through like a chunk of the tunnel, and then he stops, or I don't think he stops, but it's then the professor and the Stalker have to run up to a certain distance behind him and then stop. Like, they can't get too close to him. But the crazy thing about this sequence is that the Stalker is like hiding behind the Professor, who doesn't know anything about this situation. The Stalker, who is supposedly the expert on the speed grinder, is like cowering in fear.
That was one thing I did notice. There were a lot of parts where the Stalker was not walking out in front.
Yeah. And that's
even
another.
though he's supposed to be leading them,
right? And that's another aspect of his character when he talk. I don't remember exactly when he has his monologue, but when he talks about like the virtue of weakness and how it's like.
That's at the beginning of like the second part.
I think that's earlier, but like it's clear that he has placed all of his self-worth and his perception of a greater force, and he finds virtue in being submissive to that force and.
Right.
Second to it, and in all cases,
it's a very, very, very religious.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Submit thyself to thy higher powers.
But I don't know when the right time to get into what I think the political aspect of it is. But I mean, he's not just a believer in a religious sense. He's also like a worker, because he's the only one who works like a job, or is supposed to work a job, because his wife at the beginning is like, well, you said you're going to get a real job or whatever. And he's, not an academic like the other two guys. And it's like, he's the one who is doing the legwork of, like, even though a lot of this stuff I questioned the reality of in the zone, when they were leaving the zone, he's the one who kept them from getting arrested and shot and killed by the cops, because he knows how to do it. I mean, he's doing the legwork, and they were just sitting around only following his direct instructions, and even doing that poorly at times. So he plays like this kind of, Marxist role where he is, like, when it talks about religion being the opiate for the masses, he is the masses being intoxicated by religion as like his own form of escapism from having a shitty life outside of the zone. I mean, and that kind of ties into what I was saying earlier, especially with Tarkovsky wanting to get out of Russia. that makes it, even more clear to me that it's definitely not the primary focus, but it's there, like it exists. The Soviet influence is visible at a lot of points.
What we're saying is that the proletariat make fantastic guides in the wilderness.
Yeah.
So after the meat grinder, then is this when they get into the industrial building with the phone?
Yes.
Well, they do they're in the little mini desert. Yeah, which is, I love that area. That's such a cool area.
It was like a grain silo or something, I swear.
Yeah. And
with dunes for reasons.
Yeah. And I love that sequence, because that's the one where you would most expect when he throws the nut to do something, and it just doesn't do anything.
There was a thing up with the bird. What the fuck was up with the bird? Was that showing that there was a thing there? That there was the Stalker portal, or no? Zone portal? Because the bird flies, it hits a thing, and it jump cuts to like a different shot of the same thing. I was confused about that.
I have no recollection of what you're talking about, actually.
The weirdest thing to me is the fact that they show the writer standing up in the dune room, and then it cuts to a shot of the Stalker and the Professor, and they're like, no, and they're like, don't move.
And they're like down, and I'm like, what the fuck's happening?
Well, it cuts to the birds, and then the Professor is lying down in like a puddle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like it, like completely at the like to the side of the room, which is the weirdest thing to me, and that I couldn't quite wrap my head around.
Yeah. I need to rewatch and dissect that scene, because you guys are talking about some details that I missed.
Because you cut it out, like nothing really changes. It's just these guys go through like this grain silo. That's it.
I guess you could make, going back to the drug comparison, maybe he was waking up from
but
a heavy dose.
The drug thing is I don't know, I think it's kind of minor. It's important, but I think it's kind of a minor facet of the image.
I mean, that's other than the fact that there was a literal portal that just led him to a puddle, or maybe something pushed him out of the way, or maybe he ran and we didn't see it.
I'll have to rewatch that scene and figure it out.
Yeah, I might have to even just do like a specific research or something, because I don't see it mentioned anywhere.
But the main thing that I remember about that sequence is how beautiful the set is, and the shots are, and the dialogue of the writer, and how he delivers it to the camera as well, which is the first delivering to the camera that occurs in this movie, and it happens out of nowhere with no explanation. And
yes, that's right.
I don't.
I was like, oh, is this like based on a play or something?
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, I guess it doesn't matter if I get my inspiration back because they're just gonna fucking eat up my works anyway, and then as soon as I die, they'll just go to someone else.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do I write if I hate it so much?
And I think it's like pretty simple, the reason ultimately, like, even though I'm not 100% sure of it, but I think it's probably pretty simple, the reason why he delivers that to the audience, because the writer is very much like symbolic for philosophers but also for artists, and it's the artist addressing the audience. I mean, that's pretty direct to me. Like I mean, that's enough of a reason on its own, I think, to justify that fourth wall break. Because we're talking about so far from reality anyway.
And
so far from a dreamscape.
And then the Stalker's like, well, you're clearly going to live 100 years now because you're so lucky.
Yeah.
And then he goes, why, what did he say? He says, like, why not forever or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant.
Like
which is
the wandering Jew.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love
Jew.
that line, because that's literally the perfect summation of the existential anxiety, like, driving his character is the persistent, I don't even know what the right word would be.
And especially with the wandering Jew comparisons, I feel like that even further draws it home. Well, I think what that in particular is referencing is after, like, before Moses and the Jews left Egypt. Well, before they went to the Promised Land.
Yeah.
They were doubtful of what if the land was actually promising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it would actually provide for them, if it actually had milk and honey. And God was like, you know what, guys? You're just going to wander in the wasteland for 40 years because a new generation of children won't be unappreciative assholes. So maybe they'll see with new eyes like you do.
Well, that's helpful, because I don't know anything about the Bible, so any kind of specific biblical reference is just going to go right over my head.
I don't know much about the Bible either, but I always like hearing like summaries of stuff, just because people have their own little takes.
It gets pretty metal. The Bible's
it's pretty metal.
Yeah,
They
there's
should make
that
a
whole
metal
section
Bible
of,
movie.
if you're Jewish, you can take hold of you can make anyone a slave as long as they're not a Jew.
Yeah.
There's some interesting things in the Torah. Anyways.
Oh man.
We can do the Torah next week.
They pass the grain silo, and then now they're in like a small room with a phone.
Very unceremonious arrival, I mentioned. They don't even really address that they've gotten there. You just are left to figure out with your own...
I just like to imagine the writer and just stormed off because he's just like, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
That's when the writer puts on the crown of thorns.
Yeah, and...
That's at the end of that part.
Yeah, but this sequence has a lot going on, so...
what? Like, what happens? Oh,
okay.
Oh, smooth.
At the start, like, the Stalker's like, oh, you're clearly like you're such a good guy. You got to be great. Also, there's this poem that Porcupine wrote.
Yeah. Okay. The poem is something that I didn't spend enough time evaluating or like analyzing. Like I kind of just.
Well, I've got it pulled up here.
Well, all right.
If you want me to read it.
I don't know. Should we have him read it?
It's not too long, is it? I don't remember it being that long.
It's not very long, I don't think.
It's 5 stanzas, 4 lines each.
Do it, Soy. Soy, do it in an impression, just to spice it up a bit.
Okay. Now the summer's gone. If it hasn't been here, in the summer it's warm. But it is not enough. Everything what could have come true, like a 5-fingered leaf, fell straight into my palm, but it is not enough. Neither evil nor good was lost in vain. Everything burned in the light, but it is not enough. Life kept me under its wing, took care of me and saved me. I was lucky indeed, but it is not enough. The leaves were not burnt, the branches were not broken, the day is clean like glass, but it is not enough.
I can't believe you fucking kept that accent alive the entire, respect. Yes.
I slowly dipped into Elvis a little bit.
Yeah, but
I didn't hear it at all.
It's adjacent enough that you can keep it going. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Soy. Thank you, Elvis Hill.
Yeah, but the thing about the poem that I guess is the most fascinating is that poem, like, sounds pretty fucking depressing, you would think. And it sounds...
But it is not enough.
Right, well, it sounds like the writer wrote it, because that sounds like the writer's character, but it's like the Stalker reads it as if it's like Shel Silverstein or something beautiful and nice and uplifting even. Just like almost like he doesn't even know what he's saying when he reads it.
Much like some, crazy people quoting their religious texts.
Well, yeah, or also just the people that, to quote him, gobble up the writer's works and don't satisfy him with the level of understanding they show of what he writes, or the level of insight they can provide into his constant malaise as a existentially anxious being.
Yes. I was going to say, I think my favorite part of that whole scene is the part where the phone starts ringing, and not only do they immediately react to that adversely, but the writer picks up the phone and says, "Yes? No, this isn't a clinic," and then hangs up. And then they all slow turn. Yeah,
there's probably some crazy specific meaning in that line that I couldn't begin to tell
I think it was just someone asking if it was a clinic.
Well, yeah, but it
well, because
there's always this whole movie has stuff on purpose, so it's just like a matter of
Well, I was going to say, I just remembered in the beginning, the professor says he's a physicist.
Yeah.
So, and then he uses that same phone to call up his colleague.
Right.
I guess it wouldn't be too far out of the realm of reason. And he did also mention that that he was the professor, the way that he was talking to his colleague over the phone, it sounded like he had been to this building before, before the zone was established, I guess.
Maybe.
Oh, we're in Lab 4. He seemed somewhat familiar with the area, at least, from our perspective.
That may be true, but I kind of just thought that it was the kind of thing where they had a lot, they discussed it in depth, at his academic whatever. I mean, I'm sure that they would like to study this inexplicable anomaly that has cropped up. I mean, I guess it's possible that he was there, and I can't really disprove it, but I don't know if he necessarily had to have been there for that conversation to have played out that way, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm sure there's plenty of things to wonder about as an academic in his position about what the hell this thing is.
I mean, yeah, I think it's just more... Maybe it was another research facility that was up and then fell into complete and utter disrepair.
Yeah, it's possible.
So it's just I'm in building 4. Wow, this is great. I'm literally 2 meters away. And you can't do anything about it. Ha ha. And then the guy on the phone's well, I mean, shit, dude. I know you're doing this because I slept with your wife, but...
The guy on the phone just gets his ass so hard. Just the hardest roast. The hardest own of all time. And you can tell it gets him because he just hangs up the phone. He's oh jeez.
The guy's don't hang up the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
So when does the bomb come into play?
Very soon, but there's a lot going on in this.
Yeah,
in this sequence.
After the end of the phone scene,
but I like
the professor starts pulling out all the stuff and making it.
But I want to mention the light bulb thing because I think that's awesome. Because at the very beginning of the movie, the stalker's wife turns on the light bulb and it fizzles. Pops and fizzles out pretty much as soon as she turns it on, and then the writer, for seemingly no reason, pulls this switch that turns on a light bulb that then it's super bright too, incredibly bright, and then it immediately fizzles out. And then if you look in the gooey sludge in the other room it's just covered in busted light bulbs for some reason, of that same that's what I thought they were, of the same model of the one in the other.
Flasks or something.
Yeah, I mean it could be both, even
objects made of glass that are broken,
or just
a large category of things.
Or I guess to your point, it could be glassware from the research laboratory, graduated cylinders and shit.
In the script I have pulled up here, it says that they are graduated cylinders and beakers.
Oh, well, there you go.
Ooh.
Script has come in handy. We should probably have been looking at that the entire time, huh?
No, I hate reading. Every research I did of this was mostly videos. That's where I absorbed the most information.
And then there's a sequence that the symbolism is what I'm the least sure of. I think of the entire thing is the dog entirely. I have no idea what the dog is about, but also it's the dog in front of like a skeleton couple, I guess. They were like holding each other. Yeah, and then there's like a door opening and closing in like behind off screen next to the skeletons, and I guess that is a callback to his relationship with his wife or his wife's affair, but I don't really know. I don't have a lot to say about that entire sequence. I feel like I kind of missed the intent with that one.
Yeah, I've sort of just run out of things myself.
But that is where the bomb plays in, though.
Yes, because he starts assembling it, and then the writer's like, "Oh, you've got some new science device. What is that? A soul meter?" And he's like, "Oh no, it's a bomb." You're joking.
Yeah.
No, it's a 20 kiloton bomb. It's just so casual about it.
Yeah, and it's.
I plan on using my wish to leave the zone after I plant the bomb.
Yeah.
Which is not what he says, no.
But that would have been a good play if he was going to do that.
My deep most desire is to be literally anywhere but here.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have played out. Probably wouldn't have.
No.
His deepest desire would probably just to be like to super own that guy who fucked his wife, who cucked him super hard.
Either that or get a Nobel Prize.
Right.
You know what? Give him the biggest Nobel Prize ever and have it fall on the cheating asshole.
That is incredibly specific, but also 100% accurate to what that guy would. Yeah. Yeah, that was. Yeah, there was a big problem.
What the professor wants.
We needed a big old smoosh.
But this is where, like, I think, like this
is where all comes out.
Right. The idea and all the themes that this has been working towards really flesh out into kind of a specific idea. I'm pretty sure people use the word nihilism a lot very loosely now, like just to describe whatever, like just people going and partying. But like this movie is very specifically about the philosophical school of nihilism, like in its origins, like Nietzsche, basically.
Yeah, very classical nihilism.
And specifically about how it's kind of a mirror of an ideology and it just reflects whatever you want back into it. But, not some things. It reflects some things back at you. Maybe not what you want it to reflect back at you.
No.
But there is even a direct mention to Hitler, which is one of the most common cases, I think, of people misinterpreting Nietzsche as Hitler, quoting Nietzsche, even though that it has like the exact opposite of Nietzsche's ideas. I mean, Nietzsche was against all dogma, and now white supremacy is a lot of dogma, like a lot of it. So, but I think I
need to read more.
That's kind of the idea, because it's like ultimately, if you get to the conclusion that there's no meaning, then it's just whatever you want to do,
whatever you want.
You fill in the blank.
Yeah, and it's not really a substantive ideology on its own, because it's going to be supplemented by just whatever the next most desire you have, regardless of how sensible. I mean, because it's not sensible, whatever it is you're doing. You've abandoned the idea that whatever you're doing has sense to it, and you're just going to do it based on an immediate whim, or because it's easy to, or because you're in the habit of it, or it's just. I mean, there's a million ways to interpret being told that you're free from all meaning and you're in chains because you'll never have meaning at the same time. So that's what I really think the film is ultimately about in the end, because you've got all these ideas throughout. Also, another thing, when there's pans of the stuff like buried in the water and like covered in algae and shit, and there's needles down there, there's also like guns and like books and like religious, and that's a very blatant like
a plate of Jesus.
Right. It's a very blatant mention that this is all encompassing in terms of ideas, and how in the face of this, desperation can just end up being nothing, or being whatever.
It all atrophies at the end.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not necessarily saying that that's the case. I don't think it's necessarily saying that nihilism is like an accurate interpretation of the world. It's kind of just about the conditions that lead people to coming to that conclusion, and the conditions that it inflicts upon those people as as they acquire that belief. Because it's very much the kind of thing that just even looking for the answer that then leads you to the belief that nothing matters is a form of escapism, because it's like you are unsatisfied with your existence, and you don't know of, or you don't want to try to fix it in any direct sort of way. So you go way out of your way into the realm of abstraction to find like some thought or idea to hold on to that will then retroactively give your suffering meaning, which is what the religious do, and also what the nihilists do.
I was about to say that is essentially what happens to the Stalker at the very end.
Right.
When he's this is jumping ahead a little bit because we didn't even talk about like the verbal and physical confrontation between the three. But one of the last scenes of the movie is after the Stalker and company return. He's just got back home with his wife and kid, and he's laying on the floor, and eventually his wife gets him to lay back in bed, and he's basically like you said, he's confronted with the idea that what he's doing is pointless, because he even says, like, there are no happy people left, I can't lead them all to the zone anymore. And then even as his wife attempts to try to help, like saying, oh, why don't we just move to the zone, like the Stalker again denies that, and he's still, I guess, grappling with his belief in the zone and the realization that, hey, this might just be bullshit. And it's
it's like he's so on the cusp of coming to that realization. Like, and I think it's really telling that when his wife offers to go to the zone with him, he's like, but what if you also, I don't remember the exact wording, but it's like he's afraid of the same thing happening, where she's like, there's nothing that you as good as you think there is here. Like whatever.
He's afraid that she'll have the same conclusion that the writer has, and then it'll leave him in an even worse spot, because now he'll have virtually no one except the zone.
Yeah, well, and he'll also be closer to being forced to address his own insecurity about whether or not this thing is what he thinks it is, which has just been building up.
And then his kid moves some glasses across a table, so
yeah, and that man, there's a million ways you can like that. That's the most open to interpretation thing in this entire movie, is that last scene, I think, because there's 100 ways you could tie that into the rest of.
She could have just put a magnet in each of the glasses.
Well, yeah, or
moved a bar magnet underneath,
or have it not tie in at all. You could technically do that too. It's not a massive chunk of the film, but
that was actually a promo for Mother 4.
I wish. Rest in peace. There is the sequence with the bomb.
What else is in between?
I guess the most notable thing about that is that the writer stops the Stalker from stopping the professor from blowing up which seems a little bit out of character, a little bit out of step with his even his very recent actions and ideas. But it almost seems like he's just so mad at the piety of the Stalker that he's against him by default. It doesn't even really matter.
Essentially, yeah, that's what I got, because he's saying, you're getting off on this, leading us here,
And I'm not satisfied yet. Where is the purpose that I was promised at the end of this tunnel? I got none of what you got.
How is this room supposed to know what my innermost desires are?
Yeah.
When I don't.
It's a temporary moment of synchronicity between him and the professor. Probably the only one in the entire film, actually.
Other than them being asleep.
Right. Yeah. I love that part, actually, because they're in a totally different area of the little place that they're camping in when they rest way earlier in the movie, and then when they wake up, the writer's basically cuddling with them for some reason, and it's not really elaborated on.
That's a little odd.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Stalker's still by himself in the middle of a river, because I guess that was a good place to sleep.
Yeah, he loves it.
Yeah, he would. I mean, he'd let a
Kind of makes me want to sleep on a
caterpillar-
river if it wasn't going to drown.
Well, you might have some trouble sleeping on the river if you had some flotation devices. You can go right ahead.
No, just let the water fucking just wash through you.
That
actually
is
nice.
an interesting bit of geography. That little bit where it's like an outcropping of moss on the riverbed, and that you can kind of just lay on. Because like when it flashes back to Sepia and he's laying, that's like a totally drained area.
Yeah.
There's like no actual water there, so it's like that doesn't actually have to be a real thing. That doesn't actually have to be like physically possible to sleep on that bit of moss, because it's like a stand-in for a place that there's no water depth at all. If that makes any sense.
I mean, I'm just saying I wouldn't sleep there.
No, me neither.
Comfortable. None of that where they were sleeping seemed very comfortable.
But what does it mean? But what does it mean, though? I don't know.
I don't know if that means anything specifically. Maybe it does.
I think it means that he likes to sleep on moss rather than all the incredibly sharp rocks that were on the shore of the river.
And that's probably wise of him, ultimately.
Probably. Maybe it's a deeper message that secluded in his own ideology in the middle of this
At least Stalker knows not to sleep on pointy
river,
things, so he's got that much.
In this river of life that separates him from the shores of nihilism, he has his own little island of moss that he calls home.
Yeah.
It's very secluded, but he also had a dog with him.
Mm-hmm.
So
the mysterious dog whose symbolism I can't begin to dissect.
So we are after the bomb. We talked about.
We haven't gotten to the disarming of the bomb yet. I don't think.
Yeah, go ahead.
you want us to like rush through the rest of the plot? Or are you getting?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay, you can go right ahead.
I have nothing.
It's fine.
We are very professional here.
I'm sure there will be something. There will be a film in which I have nothing. And
yeah, but at least if it's fun or kooky, you can mention that. But in this movie, there's like nothing for me to input on.
If they ever make Klonoa 2 into a movie, then I'll have everything to say.
Klonoa 2, it has to be 2?
Yes.
I didn't know there was a second one.
What? Okay, that's a topic for discussion another day.
We'll do Klonoa cast next week.
Video game goblins.
Now that's something I could talk about.
I wrote a lot of notes, but so much goes through my mind that it's only...
Yeah, no, I had trouble making my own notes too.
Part of it.
I think it would help if I had seen it probably more times, because more than taking notes, it's like just reading through the script, because I did give the script a once-over as well before we started this. That was also very helpful, because I realized watching the film twice, like, I understood a lot of the visual meaning with watching it twice, and then I was like, maybe I should watch it another time, and I was like, maybe I should just find the script.
yeah. I mean,
all I was really doing at that point was I wanted to go over the specific character interactions. That was what I wanted to reread. And also the YouTube version that I was reading, not a lot of the time, but there were parts in the subtitles that got really kind of jank. Like they were just random characters that were inserted, which was probably an encoding error. I'm not sure how the subtitle system work on YouTube, but I couldn't understand a few lines of dialogue every 30 minutes or so. So it was helpful. Well,
the last time I watched it, I was when I watched it recently for this, I was rewinding a lot, because there's a lot of density to the especially the interactions between them that
it's so dense.
It's so dense. Every frame, every shot just has so much going on.
The writer's a funnier character than we've ever had before.
Are you guys?
We can get him to work.
Yeah.
Is this Jordan Peterson? Because Jordan Peterson.
George Lucas.
Oh, okay.
Quick, George Lucas Peterson, go.
I don't remember what Jordan Peterson sounds like. So.
Just do Kermit.
It's literally just Kermit. But crying Kermit is...
If we can get Miss Piggy to work in the Star Wars film.
Alright, that's spot on.
Perhaps we'll see. We'll need to add some new anomalies to the Stalker remake. I've always wanted to go back and complete it.
Just he adds fucking monsters to Stalker, dude.
He just he just adds the monsters from the video game. He has the bloodsucker.
Oh my god,
that'd be amazing. Someone just take Stalker. Someone just take Stalker and then do fucking Stalker remaster, and they just put Stalker game shit in there.
Oh my god, dude. That would be...
Get out of here, Stalker. Film ends.
That would be such an artless train wreck that it would actually be awesome.
Oh my gosh.
It would just come full circle.
Exactly. Precisely.
So yes, the bomb. How does it get defused?
Well, the porcupine...
The writer theorizes about why Porcupine killed himself.
And it's 100% true, and it's like, of course, that's what happened. He theorizes it, and it's immediately dawns upon everyone in all the audience and in the entire movie that, of course, that's what happened. 100%.
It's the closest thing we get to the truth without, like, him coming back and saying, yes, this is why I killed myself.
Right. And it's, I mean...
And it's a good assumption.
And it's that, you know, because his brother died while Porcupine was in the zone trying to get to the Wish Granter. And so when he gets to the Wish Granter and it's just money and his brother's still dead.
Yeah.
And it
well, I think it's...
Wasn't it? He wanted to wish his brother alive, but like deep in his heart, he just wanted money.
Yes, because what happened, from my memory, what happened was on the way in their like voyage, in one of Porcupine's voyages to the room, his brother died, and Porcupine made it to the room. He got money, and that's what he wanted. And then he came back wanting his brother to be alive again, but all he found was just more money.
Really? He
killed himself.
Man, I must be an idiot because I actually thought it was. No, you're right. I remember the line where that's gone into detail. Yeah, but it's the idea is that like he did want his brother back, and it's not trying to assert that he doesn't, but it's that this force appeals to a level that's lower and more innate than anyone's consciousness or anyone's personality. It's literally the Nietzschean discharge of strength is what it appeals to, and that's it. So if you bring anything more complicated or more nuanced or more sympathetic than that, then it's just going to get ignored.
Porcupine was not overcome by his greed. He crawled on his knees in this very puddle begging for his brother, and he got a lot of money and couldn't get anything else because a porcupine gets everything what a porcupine's like.
Yeah.
What porcupines like.
I mean, and it's true in a sense because it's like, imagine like losing a loved one and then your only sort of comfort is the ideology of nihilism. Like instead of religion, you have nihilism where nothing matters, and trying to find a reason to pursue, or like not to pursue, but to persist through your grief is more difficult when there's, I mean,
yeah.
What else you got, you know?
Right. And then the professor I don't think he ever even armed the bomb. He just sort of assembled it because it was in parts, and then he disassembles it and throws the parts all over the room, and it all just kind of winds down. They all sit together.
Yeah, and it's not entirely clear why he does it. I guess probably the reason is that potential of the Wish Granter to be a dangerous world-conquering weapon is
he wanted to blow it up
quelled.
for the good of mankind. Yeah,
but even though the thing where, you know, Hitler quoted Nietzsche and all that, if Nietzsche didn't never existed, Hitler would have just done the same shit probably, because he doesn't actually listen to his ideology. He just sort of appropriates it for his own purposes. I mean, he could just insert
like a lot of people today.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, yeah. I mean, and it's that's the thing, is it's like most people who talk about how cool Nietzsche was, like edgy teenagers and whatnot, don't actually internalize like the Ubermensch and shit. They might throw the words around, not really knowing what they mean, as like an analysis of anything, because, you know, the idea of believing in nothing, I guess, means to them that they can just do whatever they want with it. And in a way, it's true.
Nothing means anything, man.
Right. In a way,
do whatever I want, man.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I got from it, is that it's like, if someone is going to take it and become a conqueror of the world, then that's, I mean, just one of the many potential means they can use to justify it. If the idea is that nothing means anything, then it can't carry meaning in and of itself. It's whatever you bring to the table.
Right.
I've gone on too long about that. So
no, it's okay.
I should think that, if there's one person I think that really needs to watch this film, it's Am from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Like he would spend time watching
He
puny
probably
human
could.
art. I mean, he could, but he could probably like watch it in like a fraction of a second and fully absorb all the detail.
And you would be able to create countless theories about it.
So it seems like right after disassembling the bomb, it's sort of just back at the bar again, right?
Yeah, it kind of just there's there's a long beautiful sequence of the rainfall in the
everything just sort of calms down.
Yeah.
They just sort of sit, and it's just sort of an awkward moment where they don't really know what to do now. Here they are at the cusp of their success, and it's just no.
Yeah, and then they're
awkward
sitting
ride
down.
home, probably.
Camera zooms out. Rain happens, and then rain stops. That's the shot.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was just, all right, guys, let's just walk up the front.
I mean, that might even be part of the standard procedures, that you can go out the front when you're done.
Because please exit here. Thank you for enjoying the zone.
Since it is a man-created narrative, so it has several sub or unconscious biases towards the dramatic and the palpable and the appealing. That very well could be part of the battle plan, is to go out the front when you're done. And it's fine. Miraculously, nothing happens.
Yes.
So then we're back
at the bar.
Back at the bar. They talk, and
his Stalker's wife comes up to the bar and basically just says, okay, let's go home. Let's take the dog, too. Does anyone want a dog? The writer's like, I've got 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they walk back, and something that got me initially, because the first time I was watching it, I had totally forgotten, but they mentioned earlier in the movie that, his kid doesn't have legs, and or something like that, and I had forgotten that at this point in the movie.
She's at the start and at the end, like that's it. I don't blame you for not remembering that or retaining that, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's a close up of the side of her as she's quote unquote walking, and then they zoom out and she's actually being carried. Yeah. And then I saw she had legs, and it's like, oh, she has polio.
And perhaps most interestingly, her perspective is in color, even outside of the zone.
Mm-hmm. Very much like the zone.
Mm-hmm. And it's, I guess there's several ways you can interpret that. Weren't you saying something about the
in the book, they go into a bit more detail with her character. Yeah. She's because the book also is a lot of other stories. It's not just 3 people going to the zone. It's
that's typically how these things are, isn't it? It's like oh yeah, it's
the Wish Granter is one plot thread that gets introduced like after the halfway point, and basically the main character Red has a child, a monkey. Like I said before, she's kind of mutated in that she has like a full body covering of fur. And what's interesting about that is in the book they specify that the zone isn't radioactive. Like there's nothing in there that, well, at least as far as we know, that would cause like deformities in birth. But for some reason, and they mention it in the movie too, I think the professor says it, but children of stalkers tend to have weird mutations about them. And in the movie it's telekinesis, but in the book she's covered with fur, which is why it makes sense why they call her Monkey. It's still fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
They
still incredibly rude of them.
It?
And later, like, she has kind of a transition throughout the book, in that further and further along in the story, she gets more and more socially distant from the rest of her family and the rest of society, and she becomes, like, the fur gets thicker, and she basically...
Oh, really?
She becomes more like a monkey, basically.
Dude, this book sounds awesome. I'm gonna have to read this book.
Also, the main character's dad comes back to life. Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, just a whole bunch of...
Because he didn't want money,
zombies.
That's why.
Just a whole bunch of zombies just come back. Yeah.
Oh, it's like Game of Thrones now.
Another important distinction between the movie and the book is that, unlike in the movie where the zone is... definitely ambiguous in nature, whether or not it is real or it's specifically, a human-made narrative. It's definitely ambiguous. In the book, it isn't.
Oh,
because
yeah.
there are you remember in the games how there are specific artifacts,
Yeah.
little kind of objects that the zone sort of creates. So in the book, that's the main occupation of stalkers, like in the game, is to go in, retrieve the artifacts, and sell them for boatloads of money.
I remember.
Oh, so is the game more like the books then?
It's both, really. Like it's. I remember reading that it's like the imagery and like the visual setting of the movie with like a lot of the actual components of the book, like more so.
Essentially.
Roughly. But there's still a lot of new stuff, I'm sure, since it's...
What were you saying, Soy?
Well, I was just going, because, well, the game is radically different from the other two interpretations, primarily because of the Chernobyl accident that happened.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That's the other component. Yeah,
several years after.
Years after this movie's release date.
That was.
I don't know if it was 7. I know it was like mid to late 80s.
It was exactly 7. I watched the HBO series. Check me out.
Oh,
I saw a YouTube comment.
There you go.
That said,
exactly
it was the
7.
stupidest one though, because it said what is it? Tarkovsky. It said Tarkovsky predicted the thing, and I'm like, what? That's not what?
There's very little, if any. I mean, the only way you could get there is if you looked at the shot that has the power plant in it towards the end.
Yeah,
and somehow attributed meaning to that.
YouTube comments be YouTube comments, I guess.
Yeah.
The Stalker gets home. Stalker gets home.
Yeah, we talked about the.
Did we already mention that he talks about like his job of bringing people to find their happiness, but then every time he gets there, he has nothing himself.
Yeah, I was sort of bringing that up to go off of what Dunk was talking about in terms of the confrontation of, realizing that nothing really matters, and I was saying that's essentially what happens to Stalker's character at the end of the movie. He doesn't even lie in bed. He lies on his floor.
Oh, yeah.
He has to get his wife, his wife has to pull him into bed. And because he's just so distraught at the fact that there are no more believers, which, and
the wife was on the floor too at the beginning of the movie when Stalker left. She was on the floor. She was like in pain, and I was like, what the fuck's happening?
I thought at first she was dying.
I thought she was going to turn into like a werewolf or something. But yeah, Stalker does the same thing. So I guess they're both broken. Her to Stalker to his own self.
I think she's come to terms with it because of her final scene.
Which is great.
Which is the other scene.
Which is what comes next, where she also talks to the camera about about her almost. Just her life and sort of where she's at, isn't it? Talks about her mom.
It's about her relationship with Stalker and how everyone told me he's a crazy Stalker guy. He keeps going into that zone, prattling on and on and on. But we make life work. It's whatever. We got a kid.
And an end credits and happy music.
And
then Ode to Joy, which I did not expect.
Yeah, that was an interesting. But yeah, she definitely plays like a more distant, like a believer who isn't as doesn't have as much existential angst and isn't as much at risk of toppling the entire belief system. But also because of that, the belief works better for her, which is kind of the weird paradox. Is that it's like it's better to be like a pious believer if you're better at being a pious believer, if you're not going to be as skeptical.
I would compare it in something like Christianity, because that's the religion that I was brought up with.
Yeah.
In the sense that the type of Christian who only goes to church on Christmas and Easter, someone who doesn't constantly confront themselves with their faith, they remain tangentially to the side to where they believe in it, but they're not really confronted by it.
Well,
they
believe it, but it's more of they see the practical effect, where it's like people, volunteering at their church and like the bringing people together, and or even if they don't see it consciously, they internalize it unconsciously as being like either true or good or worth doing or more worth doing than the pursuit of truth, but some people are just wired that they just don't even have that kind of impulse or desire to do. And it's the thing is that it I don't know, it's like a curve or something where there's a middle ground where it's really bad, where like
bell curve, inverse bell curve.
Yeah, well, because it's like the more.
Does it start at the top, go to the bottom, and then go to the top again? Is it like a dip?
Yeah, because if you're really fully nihilistic, then you can take the practical application of acting as if you're in an ideology and not care that you don't actually believe in it. Or if you are not skeptical at all, then you can have that improve your life for the practical reasons and not worry about it. Even if you're confronted with, that question, you just don't really care about finding an answer for it. It just doesn't bother you. But if you're in the middle, then you're going to be like, you believe it, but you wonder what
you could go
the answer
way.
is. You can be swayed, you can be confused, and have to go through personal journey of discovery and whatnot. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to assume that in all of Stalker's previous trips, people probably didn't ask as many questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There were probably just people like him,
right?
From the lower districts of life that just wanted an out. They wanted to have their wishes granted.
Which is part of the reason he denounces their professions as a whole, because they're both inquisitive professions, and that's unpleasant.
How dare you ask questions?
But it in his defense, it is antithetical to the entire thing. The entire thing that is so powerful and beautiful to him does fall apart if you ask questions, and it definitely shows that they don't care about that happiness for whatever reason, whether there's a greater threat or even if there is a good reason for it. It definitely shows that they are willing to break that illusion that keeps them sane for the time being.
It's like that one friend you bring along while you're LARPing.
Yeah.
Keeps you tethered
yes,
to
LARPing.
reality.
The activity we've all done ourselves. So I guess it's finally
I
the
haven't
last.
even done it, to be fair.
Yeah, I've always been interested. The last scene, fucking monkey, deformed daughter, head down on the table.
Yes.
Looks at 3 glasses on the table.
Yes.
Fucking pushes them one by one. One falls down, but whatever. And there's like a poem being recited.
Yes.
And then she finished pushing them down. Head's
According
on
to
the
the
table.
script, it's apparently her reciting it.
Oh,
really?
Voiceover.
Then a train goes by, just like in the opening.
Yes.
And then the glasses move again. But then it's also trying to tell you that, hey, at the start, remember that glass that was moving? That could have been Monkey.
Is it?
Yes.
I don't know. I see the... you say that, and you're right, but the first thing my brain goes to is supposedly. She pushes the glasses with her. Because...
that's true, isn't it?
The thing that comes to my mind is that I find it incredibly hard to believe that in this universe... that would happen.
Powers exist.
Right. And what I find a lot more believable is that someone who was born indoctrinated, idolizing the Zone as a religion, who has that dogma, in their blood from a very young age, and as such is constantly in color as they view the world around them because they have it within them. God is always with you or whatnot. They didn't exist at a time where they doubted this, whatever this is, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying her power is sort of the absence of the faith?
Well, what I'm saying is that if the train knocked the glass off the table and then she interpreted it as being some divine will of God or act of God or her own ability or something, then that's
a fairly straight line for a train-moved glass, though, I will say.
That is true.
It starts and stops.
And also, they
true.
did mention that, children born of stalkers tend to just be strange overall. Yeah. I do like that interpretation, though. That does support that.
I guess it is a very flawed interpretation. I would be the first to admit, and partly because it would involve kind of a postmodern, dishonest perspective that is absent from literally any other point in the film. That's the biggest argument against it. Is it's the only time in which it would be we're shown something that didn't actually happen at all, like something that was completely. And then so in that sense, I think that I could easily be shown a better interpretation that I would then latch onto and steal and say is the right one, because it's not very good. So
the real lesson of the day is that the magic is inside of everyone.
Right. And
everyone can be telekinetic if you want to.
A little more abstract thing that I... Oh, go ahead.
Because, no, I was going to tell a dumb joke. I was going to say, because she doesn't have legs, all her leg juice went up to her brain, and she has mind juice.
Yeah, but that is... I mean, I almost think that that's kind of how it would work. Like, I mean, not literally, but like in terms of the give and take of a hypothetical omnipresent, omniscient deity or what have you. Like I guess in terms of being religious, the daughter's defect would be the how do you explain starvation here and everywhere? How do you explain these horrible things that happen all the time? And then her being able to move shit with her mind would be how do you explain this incredibly unlikely miracle that happened where somehow this guy survived this disease? Or whatever.
How do you explain this one woman, Joan of Arc?
Right. And it's kind of the same argument. I mean, I'm a pessimist, so I find the negative one to be much more compelling. Mm-hmm. But it is ultimately the same argument. Just looking at a list of stuff that happened and being like, how could this have happened without divine presence? And the thing is like, everyone has a list that they could theoretically attribute to divine prayer, and then have to reason with why they would do this or why they would do that. We just don't do it.
I don't know how this or if this connects with your theory of why she has the psychokinesis, but from the research that I've sort of absorbed, there's mentions of the religious aspect, and then how this is a world where there was sort of no faith. So then you kind of see this absent type of thing where they don't have faith, so they don't have a drive. That's why everything's so depressing. And I think there's some sort of connection there with that. And then Monkey, and now she didn't grow up with any faith. That's why she's a zone child, quote unquote. So that's, I don't know, some sort of because by that point, huh?
That's a good interpretation, actually.
But now I just confuse myself, because Tarkovsky is both saying that the world is sad without religion, but also you get powerful without religion.
Well, because it would be a nuanced assessment, because it's like if
power within and not sort of through believing something. It's sort of within yourself.
Introspection.
But I think what you said about it being she was born with no hope might have been a little more interesting, because that I almost interpret as being maybe she's born the exact opposite of a pious believer, and the new generation is freed with their nihilism, so to speak, and it's like the youth being born into it, like our generation with our shitty postmodern memes and whatnot, is more receptive to the idea of an absolutely pointless existence than the past generations were.
And then maybe with her pushing the thing, but then the train shakes the thing. Maybe there's also something there about you going like, oh, it's just the train. There's no way she could have done it, or something to that effect of
the train is actually
the power
psychic.
was her. But then we're like, oh, it was just the train though, right? Because we're at the beginning, we're fools. If it was her pushing the glass at the beginning, then it's us going, oh, we're just gonna assume it's the train automatically and not accept anything else.
I'll have to, I want to rewatch the first scene again, partly because I love it, but also to see how the glass moves on the table when the train passes, because that is curious.
It moves. Well, it moves the same way that when she's pushing the thing. The only difference is the train's going there and her eyes are closed because she's like sleeping or something. But
like,
whatever.
Does it go in like a bizarrely straight line across the?
For the little part that they show initially, it kind of does, and then when they cut back, they show that it has moved across the table.
Okay,
so I'm not sure.
I think the idea is that it could be. That's the question. That's why he's showing us that. Yeah. Well, thankfully you can just kind of watch it, because there's no dialogue for about 10 minutes in the opening, so you can just watch it.
I'm not gonna watch it now, but
the movie is like on YouTube, guys, so just check it out, or
there's
fucking stream it, whatever.
Copies of it on YouTube,
basically.
I don't know if there probably is a fine one on YouTube, but I just found some other shitty bootleg site that was a copy that I approved of, and I didn't really worry
I
about it.
contemplated downloading a high quality copy and then downloading an SRT, but I was like, I don't want to download. I'll just translate these Spanish subs. I guess you could check. I guess you could check that out. Let me know how accurate my watching of it is.
I just did it on YouTube because one of my watchings, I was preparing dinner, and I just wanted to be able to watch it on my phone conveniently.
Yeah. So. And then that's basically the end. It fades out from there. Credits come in.
All right, well, let's talk.
Yes.
Like,
what should we talk about now?
Criticism, reviews, thoughts, whatever you want to call it. Like, what do you guys think of it? Because you guys know it's like easily one of my top like 3 favorites of all time. So I don't really have anything to say about that.
So just sort of like a blast of my thoughts. I'm just like, okay, yeah, this is not for me. I'm not gonna say
the shoot.
I'm not gonna say it's just something about how slow it is on purpose and how it's also not in English, which didn't help at all.
Yeah.
But so not for me. I wouldn't say it's boring or slow, or I would say it's slow, but it's not like boring, if that makes sense, because it is supposed to be like a dream state, right? The whole thing is supposed to be like a dream. So like, can you really complain? You know, that it's purposely made this way by a guy who's well revered. So it's like, who am I to say?
Well,
that it's whatever, right?
I mean, you can still say it. Like, that doesn't mean anything necessarily that he's a well-regarded. The reason I don't think it's boring is because I'm actually engaged by the long shots and the slow. If I wasn't, then I would call him out for it. You know, I mean, like that's because I actually like it.
Thinking back on it, I think I would say I was engaged. Like, the movie is like beautiful. It's shot really well. Yeah. They know what they're fucking doing, especially that it's Soviet Russia. I don't know how bad it was to be a filmmaker back then, but.
Certainly much better than being in North Korea.
I bet.
That's a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
The shots are long. They stay on them for a long time, and then I just get sucked in. But then I'm sucked in, but then it's like, okay, now what? Like, I'm in. Now what do you want me to do?
Contemplate your past life choices.
Yeah,
you can hypnotize me, but if you're not going to tell me to be a chicken, you know, then it's like, what's the point of being in this trance state?
I mean, you know, of course, that's an incredibly subjective thing, more so than a more narrative-driven film would be. I mean, for me, there's emotional weight in the shots and the hypnotizing element of them themselves. So there doesn't have to be anything else kind of overlaid. Now, there ultimately is, with all the dialogue and philosophical questions it poses, but like even just the beginning when it's just shots of like the shitty apartment and everything, I don't necessarily know what it is I'm feeling during this period of time when nothing's been established, but it's there. I'm entertained by it, so... The
most consistent feeling in the movie is just sad.
Yeah,
it's sad, but, you know... Like,
it's a real downer, and that's one of the few reasons I think it was probably a poor choice for the first one upon retrospect. Because I wanted to be honest about it and not like baby you guys, but also it's like slow and foreign and
why don't we just watch Empire next?
Empire what?
The Andy
TV
Warhol
show?
film.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the Empire State Building of like 24 hours? What about...
It's 8 hours, yeah.
What's the one where it's like masturbation or like jerk off or something? It's called something like that.
Wait, my film got published?
No,
I didn't know anyone saw that.
Andy Warhol.
He's got some wacky.
Movie.
He's got some wackiness.
It's called Blowjob. It's 2 words. Blowjob.
Yeah,
35 minutes.
I know of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's got several.
I would have expected very different results if you typed in Andy Warhol blowjob into Google.
Gross.
I mean, if you guys actually want to do some stupid bullshit like that, then I will do it.
Oh gosh, maybe
I don't know
if
what
we
we
ever
talk about, but
maybe if we ever get to video content, we can contemplate doing commentary stuff.
I mean, we would just be talking about the value of making an 8-hour Empire State Building movie as an artistic expression, whether or not there is.
I would put it on comparison to the modern art meme of it's a black canvas with nothing on it.
But a black canvas can be taken in as much time as you want. It's not a mandatory 8-hour
That's true.
viewing.
You don't have to stand there and look at it for 8 hours.
Which makes it...
That would be a very interesting art exhibit.
Much less egregious. But anyway.
So, what do you think about... What are some of your closing thoughts of Stalker?
Nice voice.
What?
I tried.
Yes. Well, I did... I'm kind of on the same page as Mari, where I appreciate this film a great deal, It had a lot of artistry behind it. A lot of the shots were very, very beautiful.
Right.
They did convey a lot of interesting emotions,
Mhm.
and they did add in a lot of ways to the dialogue that is going on in the scenes, almost like the zone itself is a character
Yeah.
that has its own, that communicates in its own way, you know, especially with the sounds of just, you know, everything, not even just the nature sounds, but also just like water dripping and
Yeah.
like the random occurrences, you know.
Yeah.
But there were definitely parts where I think the worst it was for me was the scene where, you know, they're on the cart going into the zone. It's like, I understand what it's conveying, and that it cuts between each three of them. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
I understand. Hypnotic motion of the train.
Yeah.
And now we're in the zone.
Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly, the reason I like that scene so much is because, like, I listen to a lot of really pretentious, like, bullshit music, and so I would actually probably just listen to a track of that, like, repetitive, percussive, like, train thing, because that thing just, like, man, I'm, like, instantly, like, under the spell of that sound as soon as it starts playing. And that's the reason that scene works so well for me.
Under its spell.
Yeah. Right.
Dunk, you got any more closing thoughts, or do you think you've kind of got them all
I've
out, responding to our
talked
our
way too much. You guys got to talk more next episode, especially Mari. Mari's barely said a goddamn thing. I'm sorry for talking too
it's
much.
Better. No.
I'm sorry for picking a depressing Soviet era.
Soy, you were good. You were funny, and you had good rebuttals with Dunk. Dunk, you were good. You like this movie. It shows. Good for you. Me, I tried. At least I got us doing the structure, and I'm gonna fucking edit the shit out of this thing.
Though you were an essential component with the structure, because we would you realize we would still be talking about like
before
the video games or Mother 4.
No, I would have stopped myself. Okay.
No,
I know my limits.
Yeah, but you remember when we did? Okay, now we're getting off track, but whatever.
That's okay.
You remember
So
our session.
that's it. I guess let's just go around and just. I get a lot of other people are like, I rate this at this side of this, but let's just go simple. Yeah. Yes or no? Would you guys recommend this? I say maybe. After listening to this, maybe. Figure it out on your own.
Simple.
It should be very obvious what kind of movie this is.
Simple yes or no rating system. Answer,
I know.
maybe.
The answer is maybe.
Qualified maybe.
I will say no. I'm going to say no. Respectfully, no.
Okay.
That's just me. No as in I wouldn't recommend this to anyone, but I'll happily talk about it with someone who's seen it. But I can't recommend this when there's so many other things that are very similar in themes and just
I will say engaging. I do recommend it, but if you're a very religious person, double yes.
Got him, dude.
That's pretty good.
Went for it.
I'm going to say, I don't think a religious person would watch this. Or at least the religious people that I'm familiar with. I don't think they'd watch this and be like, oh, it's an anti-religion movie. I don't think they'd pick up on that, honestly.
I wouldn't want to group religious people together as being incapable of understanding
I wouldn't want to be in a room with more than one religious person.
I mean, I would just recommend it because it deals with, religion as one of its core themes, and religion is, if nothing else, like a constant topic of discussion. So
well, and you can
introducing different perspectives on how we view religion would certainly be very interesting, at least to me anyway.
Yeah, well,
because I know a lot of people who are kind of agnostic. They're kind of on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is the movie is about your beliefs being challenged in a very small nutshell. And I mean, if there's still very much the capacity to overcome that challenge and still believe in the thing when you're done with it, because people do that. Not all of them, but some of them actually go through that, personal crisis of faith and come out even stronger. Really,
that was essentially what happened to Jesus in the desert.
Right.
Lots of stuff happened in the desert. It seems like
Satan was kind of just like, Jesus was meditating in the desert. Satan rolled up and was like, Jesus, I know you're hungry. I know you're thirsty. Why don't you just turn these rocks into bread and we can just have a fucking party? And Jesus is like, well, I could do that. I mean, you could do that too, but if I want to contemplate the human condition, I have to suffer. And Satan's
I fucking love
you're a
these
loss.
summaries of religious stuff because I'm like, I remember this briefly, and then I just get a very modern retelling.
Well, maybe you could have us. Maybe you could have us watch Passion of the Christ for next week, and
because it's my
man.
choice for the next movie, right?
Oh shit.
So my next choice. I've been thinking of we were talking about who's next, whose movies pick is next, and I'm like, oh, it's probably me. It's me then. And then the first thing that came to my head was a movie that I'm thinking of right now, and I'm like,
Baby's Day
is this
Out.
really the best thing to talk about? Because it has someone that we're all familiar with. Some of us might even idolize, but it's a documentary, and it's about a topic that we're not very familiar with. I think all three of us, at least. So my next pick for, let's assume next week, I'm just gonna say next episode's movie is let me get up the date here so I can just say it.
Oh, that's anticlimactic.
yeah, very much
It
so.
is 1977's Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
What does he do?
Ah,
It's a
is it
bodybuilding documentary
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
about
Okay.
him competing for Mr. Universe or Mr. Olympia.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's very good, at least from what I remember. I think it still stands up. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger. The other most famous person is Lou Ferrigno, and a bunch of other random bodybuilders. So, yeah, look forward to that, I guess.
Sounds good. I haven't. So have you seen it? I sure haven't.
I think I've seen bits and pieces of it because they were in a
Okay.
YouTube poop.
Oh, let me guess. The one where this is
there
the
was
one. Should I spoil it? Should we spoil it or no for Dunk?
Well, there
'Cause
was
I
a
think-
clip of like Arnold just like lifting some weights, and there's a voiceover, and he's just like, "Happiness is coming inside of a woman,"
What? No,
Something
he's like,
like that.
after the pump, it's like you're coming, coming in
Wow.
the gym, coming
Yes.
in the store.
Wow.
It's like I'm coming all the time, and his muscles are twitching. It's interesting stuff.
That's some refreshing honesty.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
dude. All right. Thank you for listening, everyone. See you next time.
Adios.